Hi, Miriam.
Hi, Lee.
I'm starting to get on early because I've had so many problems with this. It's kind of like carrying umbrellas. It never rains when you carry an umbrella.
I know.
You get
And I
on,
just did the same thing because I have to set up so much stuff when I get in.
yeah. So go ahead and do what you're doing. I'll just mess around here.
I don't.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Oh, good. Anna got here.
musical people. Come on. Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Getting over a cold.
Oh, no fun.
Oh,
Hey, Tom and Joe. So,
I think that's it,
I
probably.
think that's everybody.
is that everybody? Oh, sad.
Martin's not coming.
Right. Okay. Um, all right. Well, I would like to open up the January 8th, 2024 meeting of the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency at exactly 7 p.m. And it looks like on our agenda, we have, oh yeah, we have election of officers, chair and vice chair as our first order of business. But we also have, I should say who we have. We have Lee Schumacher, Anna Loss, Tom Clancy, John Boudreau, myself, Kayla Freidenberg. And I think that's it for our agency members tonight.
Do we need to make nominations? Is that how the election
I-
work?
Think so?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if they're willing, I'm comfortable with the officers that we have now. If it's been too much, we're not comfortable. I like the officers that we have. If KLO, if it's too much for you and Joe wants to step up, I'm comfortable with that as well.
Well, I'm fine. Joe, how are you?
You're fine, then I'm really fine.
Okay.
I like being a vice chair.
Okay. Yeah. Well, unless anybody
can't-
else want to take, anybody else is out there. Very quiet. No, I am totally fine. And if Joe is fine, I think.
Okay,
I think I could give it a go for another year.
I make a motion that we maintain the same slate of officers that we have now. And do we have a secretary? I don't, or is it just chair and vice chair?
It's,
So
And vice chair.
Bob was the secretary.
yeah,
I think usually you just do chair. Well, by charter, you have to do chair and vice chair.
Okay,
yeah. And that's all we have on the agenda.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, I think that's fine.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to keep myself and Joe in our same positions. All those in favor, use your hand, say aye.
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 Abstaining. Okay, so everyone, that was unanimous. Excellent. All right. Well, Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you for your votes.
Thank you for your
Uh,
your
Should
trust in us.
have elected Martin for not being here.
Oh, that's right. I always forget to do that for the people missing. Next year.
Yeah.
So our first item is 23-69 Longshore Lane. And this is a public hearing. So I will make a motion that we open the public hearing for this application.
Second,
All right, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Excellent. Okay, so our public hearing is now open. And I imagine we have the applicant to refresh our memory on where we are.
That's me.
Excellent.
All right, then if you're, for the record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor, licensed to practice in the state of Connecticut, representing Lily Fogel in the construction of a trail at the south side of property that she owns at 0 Longshore Lane. As the commission's aware of, this was a application that was brought before this commission over the last 4 or 5 months. We had a number of meetings on it, site meeting, and We tabled it and then we withdrew it last month so that we can get a reading from the town attorney regarding a question about whether or not there was a legitimate conservation easement in place that could impact the application. That letter is forthcoming and should be part of your record. Tom Crosby, who is with us also, he's the attorney for the applicant, and he can address that in better detail. But that was the only thing that was really kind of holding things up. We revised the application to make the trail 6 feet wide. We showed all the existing trees at the front of the trail, and we showed the trail where it butts against Longshore Lane, weaving between the trees. We're not cutting any. We reduced a significant amount of impact to the adjoining property or to the adjoining wetland by making the trail 6 foot as opposed to 10 feet wide. We had the wetlands reflagged by William Kenny, and a copy of that report was submitted to my, if I'm not mistaken, that was submitted. So we've done everything that the commission asked for. And I think the reason we pulled it last time is somebody on the commission wanted to get a report from the town attorney regarding the conservation easement on the property, which really does not exist. And I'll let Tom speak to that in better detail. Also joining with us tonight is Lily Fogel, the applicant.
Great. Thanks.
And there's Tom.
Did you want me to speak? I could go ahead and address that now. Can you hear me?
That was as I understood it, the reason, and probably the sole reason, and Eric can speak to this, is that we pulled it is because we were running out of time to get an answer from the town attorney regarding the conservation easement, which was brought up by the adjoiner. So we did that. It was easier for us just to pull it and then resubmit the entire record as part of this application. And so the only outstanding item that the commission had wanted an answer on was regarding this conservation easement. And I think Tom can speak to that.
Certainly.
Okay. That'd be great.
Great. Good evening, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our regulated activity application and address the concerns that were raised at prior meetings. As you know, this application began in, I think, about June of 2023. We had a number of meetings in July, August, October 2nd. And during the course of those various meetings, of course, there was also a site walk, which some of you may recall attending back in June of 2023. We produced a map showing the trail, and as John Paul just described, we took seriously all of the various comments from the various parties that were interested in this. We decided to narrow the trail from 10 feet to 6. We did receive, and I know your agency's already looked at Brandon Lynn's July 7, 2023 report from the DEP that found there was no disturbance in the tidal wetlands. The mapping, as John Paul indicated, was something that, again, the agency requested. So we also identified the trees, and I know John Paul just addressed that. So what we were left with, if I could say that in a sense, was, okay, well, one of the comments made by a member of the public in opposition was the existence of a conservation easement. And you probably had a little he said, she said colloquy between lawyers. What's a conservation? What was it recorded? What's the effect of that? And so you referred this out to Attorney Ira Bloom. And then this morning, Attorney Peter Gelderman, who's in his office, wrote a 2-page memo, which is going to be part of the record. And essentially, what it says is it has no effect. In more specific detail, it talks about the fact that conservation easement was a part of a larger settlement to deal with a prior subdivision on the property. That settlement had some conditions precedent, fancy legal word for like it was supposed to happen first. Those conditions never happened. There was a signed copy of the conservation easement, which I presented to you at some point which was part of an effort by the prior owner to shop the subdivision. He got the subdivision as a stipulation of a longstanding longstanding litigation where the town was involved, Willie Fogel was involved, a gentleman by the name of Ed Zimmerman was involved, and eventually that was settled. And there were a number of things that were part of that settlement. The conservation easement, because it had been floating around, literally pursuant to an escrow arrangement, hey, take these papers and you can try to go sell the subdivision. That never happened, but the document was out there. So what Attorney Gelderman addressed in his 2-page memo today was simply that looking at a very precise review of 7.11a, the document was executed, and the only effect that he concluded that what effect would execution of an unrecorded conservation easement have? He said, well, the town should get notice. And so what he then went on to say in the second page of his letter is, in effect, the town has received notice. You're the town. You've received notice, and that the notice provision doesn't have much meaning when the holder of that conservation easement was the town. And there he went on and said, therefore, he believes that that in his opinion, and I'll read the last sentence or the first sentence of the last paragraph, even though the conservation easement agreement was executed, or in plain language, signed, it was never perfected. That means it wasn't recorded. And in fact, the purpose of the easement to protect certain lands from development as part of a subdivision never came to fruition because the subdivision never happened. So Willie Fogel has no intention of having the subdivision. She simply wants to be able to get to the property that she needs to maintain and mow. There's been some, I won't recount all the arguments in the past, but we should pick up a mower that 4 people would have to pick up and carry it across the sand or up some, trails and come down an area that we had to get a regulated activity permit over from Maplewood. This is just, so I think what he concluded, though, is that we don't have to show any feasible and prudent alternatives. And that was his last sentence. If it's determined that there's generally no adverse impact to the wetlands, then it's not necessary for the applicant to prove feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed activity. So in sense, I think we've checked all the boxes, not, literally, but specifically to give you as much information as you could possibly have to warrant your approval. And we would ask you to take that action and approve the regulated activity permit. I'll be happy to ask any questions or answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so we got a copy of the letter today. Hopefully everyone had a chance to go through it. If not, you can probably dig it up and go through now. Are there any questions that the agency has for the applicant or the applicant's representatives?
Nope.
I want to ask one easy question. This is Joe. Based on this, we had a site walk a long time ago, and I remember the access way to the inner field was below grade of that accessory building. Was it proposed that some fill would come in to elevate that little swath?
Yeah, that was the reason for the application, is
Okay.
because we're putting a bit of fill in here to even that off so we can get a mower. Because if
Okay.
you remember that somebody, the adjacent owner, when he owned it all, dug this out and effectively created our problem. So we're just trying to make a path here in the least intrusive way so we can get a mower into the back field.
Okay, that was just my question. I remember
Thank
it was
you.
a little confusing at the beginning that there was pre-activity and the fill was gonna like repair it, but
That's a
now
fact. That's
I'm
correct.
on board now. I got it. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you.
Other questions for any of the applicant representatives here? Okay, well, it is a public hearing, so if the agency doesn't have any other questions at this moment, we can open it up to the public to comment. If there's anybody, I guess I can look to, if there's anybody who wants to, yes, someone has their hand.
Attorney Jonathan, yes, Attorney Jonathan Kaplan has his hand raised.
Okay.
Maria, I think you need to give him permission to speak.
I did.
Okay, there he goes.
Can everyone see me?
We
Or hear
can't
me at
see you,
least?
Jonathan, but we can hear you.
Okay, well, that might be good.
Hand.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. And I would just like to note that based upon the renewed application and the request from Mr. Garcia, that all prior records and transcript or recordings of the hearings are incorporated. And I just wanted to ensure that that occurred. Ms. Ford is unable to join us tonight, but she was our soil scientist and expert who submitted a letter and indicated that the proposed project would involve a direct impact on the wetlands, even without the impact on potential tidal wetlands based on this mission. Let me just start by reiterating that the applicant's proposed use of this wetland area is not really based on any real need. They talk about an obligation or need to get to an area of the property. And we submitted a letter on November 2nd of last year that included a reference to Exhibit K, which is an overhead view from Maplewood Lane. Maplewood Lane has a direct path towards this purported landlocked area. The prior owner of this 22-acre parcel used to access these areas from Maplewood Lane. Mr. Caraba also used to access these areas from Maplewood Lane, including bringing a mower down the path, the well-worn path that you can see on Exhibit K. And so there is an opportunity to access this area, in addition to the others that have been previously noted, in order to do what the applicant claims that they need to do. And I think there's some a disconnect in Mr. Garcia's last submission from November 28th. Mr. Garcia is talking about a prior application that would impact the wetlands from the prior owner, that would involve the use of a culvert and some various other building. There's no need to have any impact to the wetlands via the access from Maplewood. There is a path. It has been used before. It can be used again. There is no need for any of this to be done. Second, I would note that Mr. Garcia submitted a plan identifying a couple of trees adjacent to Longshore Lane. In Exhibit G from our letter dated November 2nd, 2023, we identify various trees that are located on the map that would be impacted and have to be removed by this project. That includes images 4 through 7. I'm not sure if I have any access to be able to show that to you tonight, but I just wanted to note that, because those trees would have to be removed. And so for Mr. Garcia to indicate in his last letter that there would be no impact on trees, the pictures tell a different story. So that clearly would have a direct impact on the wetland area. And this is the key subject area. This was the area, the tidal wetland adjacent area, as well as the area that would need the fill that Mr. Boudreau just commented on. That's the area that would be impacted here. So it would not only be adding fill, but also removing trees and vegetation. And as Mrs. Ford noted in both her submissions and in her prior testimony, there would be direct impact on the wetlands based on the proposal that the applicant is using. I would also note that the alleged impact to the area, that it needs to be addressed and remediated. That's been the whole subject of this application. As we note in Exhibit H, which is a picture attached to our November 2nd letter, there is no need to add or to address this area. Even John DaCosta, the zoning enforcement officer, submitted a letter, we submitted an email from him where he acknowledges that there's minimal impact based on the alleged issues. I would also note he describes this best. Okay, he described this in exhibit, I believe, I. Excuse me, not I. Exhibit I, excuse me, as a highway through a wetland to mow a lawn. Not only is that improper and an unnecessary need to have a direct impact on the wetland, but there's an alternative means to do so. I would note that Attorney Crosby attempted to summarize the town opinion, or the opinion from council. Suffice it to say, we disagree with it. We think that it's an incorrect interpretation of law, an interpretation or recitation of some of the facts. The fact that this is a court order and the town attorney, or the attorney for this matter, is acting as if there is no need whatsoever to abide by a court order. I think that would be a dangerous precedent to set in a variety of matters, and I'm slightly astonished at that, and therefore we disagree with that. I just wanted to note that on the record. And so in sum, we believe that this project would still have a direct impact, would impact the trees based on the pictures that we provided, and ultimately is not necessary for any means. There's no reason that alternatives could not be offered, such as, alternative access could not do whatever it is that needs to be done. And one additional point, Mr. Garcia in his letter notes that the whole purpose for this application was to maintain an area as requested by Mr. Carrabba. And let me put this here, that it is not their desire for the applicant to have to impact the wetlands in order to maintain that property. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your comments. Are there any other members of the public who want to speak?
Yes.
Right.
If I'm still, I just wanted to note one additional thing that I forgot to mention. There were images that were submitted, and I'm hoping are part of the record. They were submitted to Aaron Mannix earlier today. And these are images from a high tide event in November of this year. And the pictures show that there is water that goes up not only through this entire area, but then spills over onto the Carrabba's property. This is a project that is proposing to use fill. It's proposing to use wood chips. And these, as this shows, these chips could go anywhere. These chips could be floating onto the Carrabba's property, could also be floating back into the tidal wetlands area, and who knows where else. And so I just wanted the members to note that in light of the fact that this is such a wet, and as the pictures show, waterlogged area, that allowing this type of project would continue to have further disastrous effects if allowed to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. So is there somebody else? It sounds like one.
Yes, Mr. Carrabba.
Okay.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Stephen, just identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure. Stephen Carrabba, reside at 78 Longshore Lane, adjacent to the subject property owned by the applicant. So first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to hear this. Going to be quite brief. As John had mentioned, I had prior involvement in the subject property back in the day with the Zimmerman family. Not only did I witness firsthand, but I personally traveled with a mower down Maplewood Lane over the bridges and boardwalks to which I personally constructed to the subject area, and then again personally mowed the property to which Ms. Fogel is stating that she is looking to gain access to. So with that, there is access via Maplewood, which again, I personally can attest to personally doing to push a mower down that path without any impact to any wetlands using, again, those historical paths. Again, knowing the history surrounding the property and this commission's very prudent examination of the different applications that have come before you in recent years, I would hope that the agency would continue to be so prudent in not entertaining the destruction of vegetation and wetlands to gain access to an undevelopable piece of property. My family has offered, not only is there the prudent access through Maplewood, my family has offered yet another in an attempt to resolve this issue for Ms. Fogel. We have provided yet again an alternative access via a license across our property, all Highlands, in order to gain access to the property, the subject area of the property for maintenance purposes. That has been not responded to. Again, that is something we put forth. That also being said, as John had mentioned, there is water around the lower barn more often than not at several high tides. Currently, I am not residing at 78 Longshore Lane. I just happened to be there on November 22nd as we're having some renovations done. And again, in preparation for this meeting, decided to take pictures of a subject high tide. As you can see in those photos, I don't know, Maria, if I have the ability to share screen. If I do, I'm happy to show you those. Otherwise, again, they're on the record. But with that being said, water comes in well past what Mr. Garcia has deemed as the point of demarcation, if you will. And so there most certainly will be a lot of these wood chips or what other types of materials, not only encroaching onto my property, but then when the tide recedes, going back into those wetlands. And then the last thing that I will mention is the inaccuracy related to the disturbance of trees. Mr. Garcia has attested to not having to remove trees. I welcome the commission to come to the property. Feel free to walk on my property to look at all of the subject trees that we have put forth and confirm with your own two eyes the fact that it is absolutely impossible to gain access to said property in the path as outlined without having significant destruction caused to significant amounts of vegetation, as well as very old live trees, as John had mentioned. In addition to, while I much appreciate the deviation away from trees outlined in image 1, the entire north side of that entire tree would have to be completely clear cut. So while the tree wouldn't necessarily be taken down on image 1, all the limbs of the tree on the north side most certainly would have to be. So for all of those reasons, I respectfully request that the commission deny this application. And I stop there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? No.
I'm
Um,
happy to, Madam Chair, I'm happy to screen share those images that were sent. I do have an email from 6:50 this evening from Attorney Kaplan with an attachment that I can screen share for you if that's so you can see what they're referring to.
Sure, yes. I don't think anybody had a chance to see those given the time of the email.
No.
Yeah, I didn't get
No,
them.
not shared. So this is the letter, indicating they wanted to submit attached photos from the November 22nd, 2023 tide event.
Now, is this standing water the result of flooding or high tide?
I believe the applicant, or not the applicant, somebody,
Mr. Caraba?
Kaplan, said that this was a high tide event, and just quickly looking, it looks like this was near a full moon tide, which would be helpful to know.
He's asking to speak again. Did you want to clarify with him what it was?
Sure.
Yes, please. Meaning
Hi.
that water happens twice a day?
It does not happen twice a day, but it happens at least monthly. It is not infrequent, let's just say that. But it is not every high tide, no.
Okay, thank
But
you.
as you can see, it's, quite deep in the subject property as evidenced by the stakes that are on their quote unquote property line.
Thank you for the clarification.
Certainly.
All right, so are there other, so we've seen the photos. Are there any other members of the public? It doesn't look like there's anybody else who wants to speak. For our agency members, this is a chance during the public hearing to gather information. So if you have other questions for the applicant or the applicant's representatives, yes?
Lily would like to speak. Miss Vogel would like to speak.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. And thank you all for your time. I just wanted to clarify something because John Paul made a statement that was slightly incorrect. He said that the area was disturbed when the applicant owned it, and that is not correct. When I purchased the property in April of 2021, I could walk from Longshore Lane along that property line on my property to the area that I'm trying to get access to. On November 15th of 2021, Mr. Caraba had an excavation done on my property without my permission that excavated a hole large enough that I no longer could walk from Longshore Lane to the property in question. This application isn't just about being able to get a lawnmower so that I can mow the property that Mr. Caraba has been complaining about, that he filed a blight report about, that he is claiming in court that we're neglecting. It's not just for that reason. It's also so that I can have the access that I had when I purchased the property before Mr. Caraba dug a giant hole and blocked my access from Longshore Lane to the property that I purchased. So I just wanted to make that clear because JP had said that the excavation was done when the prior owner had it. That is not correct. The excavation was done when I owned it, and it was without my permission. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that extra information. So I see that Mr. Caraba would like to speak, and if we can keep this to the application at hand, I think it sounds like there may be other issues going on here, which is fine, except that our purview is in the wetlands. So, Mr. Caraba, you're welcome to speak once more. But I would like to keep this, as much as we can to our application.
Thank you. I appreciate the willingness to hear me one last time. I just want to reiterate, there never has been. I know this property incredibly well, better than probably anybody on this call. But there never has been ever any access in any way, shape, or form, except for across what is now 78 Longshore Lane to the desired property. Miss Fogel's comments are incredibly inaccurate, and there is no way to get through the proposed wetland area historically or today, and has nothing to do with that excavation.
Okay,
Again, I welcome the commission to visit the property again.
thank you for your comments. Okay, so, okay. So, Mr. Crosby. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, first off, that the exhibit that Attorney Kaplan, and I don't believe Mr. Carrabba referenced it, but maybe he did. I think it was Attorney Kaplan, Exhibit J, includes an email from John DeLora to Lily Fogel addressing the excavation that Lily Fogel just raised. I think in 2021, this is an exhibit from the opponent to this application. Mr. DeLora, who, as you know, is your zoning officer, has said that I did visit the site this morning. I met with the owner. I've reviewed the subdivision. I did find a small isolated pocket of wetlands adjacent, being choked by invasive Phragmites. The area is not a significant wetland. The work was being done because of a previous IWWA approval for a propane tank and underground utilities. No trees are being removed. Disturbed area is to be stabilized. And he went through and talked about, I won't read the whole memo, but you can see it. I think he forwarded it to Mr. Carrabba, because I think Mr. Carrabba had asked for a copy of it. And so what I'm pointing out in this is that there was this circumstance, however you want to describe it. This is an event that happened. And this event, which was this disturbance, is the reason we're here. And whether Ms. Fogel skipped onto her property, walked onto her property, walked backwards on her property, rode a bike on her property, she has a right to get to her property. And if there's been a disturbance, she has a right to try to put it back if you agree that it's not going to damage the wetlands. So to flip this back to the original question is looking at not just what Mr. DeLora gives as an opinion about, let's say, the wetlands, but really looking at William Kenny's opinion, looking at Ms. Ford's opinion, weighing that, and looking at the actual proposed activity, which has been dialed down significantly. I'll let John Paul Garcia talk about trees, but if we say we're not going to cut down a tree, well, we can't say that anyway, other than we're not going to cut down a tree, And he's given a drawing, which he's amended, which shows how the path will be developed. And although we're very, I guess we'd make a response that it's a gracious offer, Mr. Carrabba, to let us use some other access. But we're in litigation with Mr. Carrabba, and with all due respect, we can't accept his offer. He can't accept an offer. I mean, we're in the middle of a lawsuit where we're fighting about things about the property. So unfortunately, that's never going to happen at this point. And then to just my final point, this IWWA already gave a regulated activity permit to come down Maplewood Avenue to access this property to the prior owner, the Mr. Zimmerman party, if you will. I don't know what other people did by bringing mowers down or walking down an area that this agency decided there was significant wetlands that needed to have a permit. So I could just say that we've not proposed that path, and we don't want to go down those wetlands. We're trying to, shoehorn a small path so we can redress, like as Ms. Vogel said, complaints that we're leaving our property in blight or we're not taking care of it or whatever, so that we can, go back to the way it was before this incident that Mr. Delora documented in Exhibit J. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you.
And if you want, if I can share my screen, I can make a quick presentation of I've got some pictures that show the exact trail. And I think that will answer the question about tree removal.
Okay.
And I can do that very quickly.
I think you should have screen access.
There. Can you see that
Yes,
picture?
you would. No, not, you have to hit screen share.
I
John
hit
Paul.
screen share. Is that
No, see that yet?
can you see that yet?
No.
No.
Screen one. Screen one? Huh. How about that one?
Nope.
Jesus. Hit control, let's see, share.
There we
How's
go.
that? Can you see one?
Yes.
We see a
Okay.
pink stake.
Yep, that's standing in Longshore Lane, looking west where the trail is going to go. You can see all the significant trees that have been located on the plan that we submitted. The trail is going to come where my pointer is, and then go around to this tree here. And then, if I can hold the phone, this is where the trail keeps going. Now here's the disturbed area next to the shed. There's the shed. This is the area that's all been ripped up. You can see the tire tracks and everything else is through there. And now this is looking back. There's no significant trees. Here's looking from the west side of the shed back up the trail. This is all scrub tree. There's nothing significant here. And then here, let me see if I can find it. Here's a picture. This is the corner of the property. The corner of the Carrabba property, 78 Longshore Lane, looking back towards that shed. There isn't a tree here. So the only trees that are of any significance are the ones I show on the plan, and we're going to miss those. Everything else is shrub brush. That's it. I'm done.
Okay.
We're not cutting them. There's no
So-
need.
Go ahead.
You know, this is there's no trees being cut. You know, but this is to get back to where the barn is. You can see the area is disturbed. We're trying to fix so that we can get back here. We just can't get back here right now. But there's no significant trees being cut. There's some scrub in here. There's some brush in here. These are not significant. And we're missing all these. We're coming in through and swinging wide. And those trees are all shown on a revised plan. And there's the corner of the property, back to the corner of the property. So I take an exception to the fact that we're cutting trees.
Okay. Thank you. It's helpful to see and to have you reiterate that there are no significant trees being cut, which I know was on the revised plan. All right, so we have no other comments from the public that I can see. And
Have a question for Aaron.
Yes.
So Aaron, in my experience with in other towns, when a record from a previous application is incorporated into a existing record, we have to do it by motion. Do you agree?
To accept, if that is the preference of the agency, it was the request of both the applicant as well as the neighbor in opposition to incorporate that record. So I think there's an understanding here on the record that all of that application materials and testimony is incorporated.
I think we voted on this last time.
Last month.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went through the minutes and we actually formally agreed to do exactly what we've done. So we did
We're good there.
vote to do that last
Okay.
time. So that's that was all shipshape heading
Okay.
into.
Thank you.
So the question, I guess, that staff had, well, one was to open the hearing, receive, any new information, any new comments from the public, and to see if the agency members themselves had any questions for the land use attorney, or if you're looking for additional information as to whether or not to hold the hearing open. And then based on this feedback and if you do close the hearing, some deliberations, then staff would be able to draft, some possible resolution for you, depending on which way you're looking to go here.
Okay, great. So, does anybody have, obviously we've gone over this application and requested various bits of information over the last 4 or 5 months. Are, given what you've heard tonight, given what our land use attorney said, does the agency have any more information that they'd like to get or ask any other questions of the applicant's representatives or the applicant herself?
I did have one quick question. I apologize, I forget who mentioned it, that the water does come up over where the path would be, and we looked at some pictures showing that water ponding. With that path, I know, again, I apologize, I don't remember who said it, the wood chips would kind of go with that ebb and flow. Is there some sort of soil erosion blanket, excuse me, or some sort of I don't want to say netting, but something that could keep that wood chip from migrating?
And it's once the wood chips are put down and have gone over a couple of times, they tend to pack pretty hard, and they don't just, some of the loose stuff will float, no different than the leaves or anything else that's there. So the reason for using wood chips is because it is a natural material that degrades. You're not putting 5 feet of wood chips, you're putting a top dressing. And so once you've been over it once or twice, they tend to pack relatively hard, and they don't tend to migrate very much. They're not going to, if you get an extremely high tide, a moon tide with a heavy rain, and the water comes up on the path, it's not coming up with velocity, it's coming up and going down. So this isn't like it's a path in the way of a current or a stream. So you're not going to get the corrosive effects or the erosive effects of any velocity. There's just not any velocity there. It's also fairly well protected by the surrounding vegetation. We're only cutting a 6-foot wide path. So it's protected on the side where the water comes in from. So there's no velocity. So there should be very little, if any, movement of material.
Right. And
But-
so, Anna, the comment was on the pictures from November 22nd, which was 5 days before full moon. And as Mr. Carava said, it doesn't flood all the time. So it's in these kind of extraordinarily high tide times.
And you also had, if you can remember right, in November, the middle to end of November, we had at least 3 significant 2 to 3 inch of rain events, which also tend to raise the water level just a little bit.
Right. So
But
go ahead.
yeah, but to add on to Anna's question, one could lay down a roll of, say, chicken wire over the top and stake it down. So there is a way to keep the wood chips from dispersing at an added.
Oh, if you stake chicken wire down, you're now creating a tank trap for rodents and for animals and for people. That it's chicken wire. I would never recommend chicken wire. If you want to do something like that, then they make a filter fabric, but again, it's usually put under the top dressing layer. It's not put over the top of the path. And if you're worried about migration, again, that's the reason for using wood chips, and only a coating of wood chips, 6 inches, because you don't get that much migration. If this was a velocity issue, then I would be using 1.5-inch crushed stone, choked with 3/4-inch crushed stone. I mean, we can do that too. If you're really worried about migration of material, we can do this with a choke course of crushed stone in that area. It's not a big deal, but I think that's more intrusive than wood chips.
I agree. I'm a DIY engineer, so I thought of chicken wire. I saw it at Tractor Supply the other day.
I'm sorry, I just see chicken wire and I see all these little rodents stuck with their feet and stuff.
Okay. So Anna, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just wanted to follow up on that comment, and just get some feedback. Thank you.
All right. Any other agency members have additional information that they feel they would want before we close the hearing? Because remember, and this came up with our old schoolhouse, we need anything that we want to use in our decision needs to have been discussed, presented, exhibited in the public hearing. This is a chance.
I think the previous record is very extensive, and I think Attorney Gelderman's letter is an excellent piece for us to go forward with, and the reference to the DEEP stating that it's not a significant, it won't have an adverse impact. I think those are valuable pieces to the record. I don't see anything new needed.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of going once, going twice, because then I'm gonna move that we close the public hearing.
I second it.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, well, I was giving the going once, going twice, but I moved that we close. Lee is seconded. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, raise your hand, say aye. Any abstentions, objections? No? Okay, thank you. This public hearing is now closed. So, that means for the agency members that we are in the deliberation phase. So, we have choices of either approving or not approving this application. And as usual, if we approve, we can have conditions. And this is where I think town staff could, just whichever way, I guess if we don't approve, then we don't need any conditions. If we think we might approve, then town staff would be able to help us draft a proper, well-worded staff resolution. So, does anybody, after all of these months and all of the material, particularly the letter we got today from our land use attorney, kind of wrapping up the last piece of information, how are people thinking about this application? Are there still concerns? Do you think the concerns have been met?
So, okay, I don't have any concerns anymore. I thought the site walk was valuable when we were there. Seeing that standing water is infrequent relieves some concern about the impact of the regulated activity, and I would be in support of at least a motion to approve be written for us with kind of a hat tip to the opinion of DEEP saying there'd be no adverse impact on the nearby wetlands. Attorney Gelderman's letter stating that this commission should have no concern over the unrecorded easement. And then I would point to regulations 10.2A, B, D, and F. There's no environmental impact on the wetlands or the capacity of the area to support wildlife or prevent flooding. This is not a significant activity. There's no need to show alternatives per Attorney Gelderman. No irreversible or retrievable loss of wetlands would occur. There's no impact on areas outside the area of the regulated activity. And I'll stop there as far as leaning toward an approval. And as a condition, the applicant shall use due diligence to control the dispersal of wood chips onto the property to the south. I am done.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I think we did deem it a significant activity, which is of course why we're here. But we can deal with the language of what we've learned.
Okay, maybe I used the wrong language from Attorney Gelderman. I'll look it up.
Right, and we're just discussing. So
Yep.
I guess I will just say I was appreciative that the path was narrowed from 10 to 6 feet and that there appears to be no need to take out significant trees. So I see that as a positive way of minimizing impact. I think the environmental assessment I think Michelle Ford kind of said there might be, there could be, there may be, but I think with the shortening or the shortening the width of the path is helpful, and not taking out trees is helpful. I don't see this as being hugely detrimental. That would be
True.
my
I think the photos of the path with the red line showing the exact location, basically of possibly the middle of the path, showed that there weren't really any trees besides what he said was scrub pines or whatever that might be impacted. I think that was very helpful. And I know we all did, well, we might not all have, but doing the site walk, was certainly advantageous to have it visualize it. But the pictures with the red line of the path really showed that there's minimal impact moving forward.
okay.
Yeah,
So-
like Tom, I think the pictures were very, very helpful, especially for those of us that don't have the memories that everybody else does. Because I remember the site visit, and those pictures really refreshed my impressions when I was out there as well. And the applicants narrowing to the path and modifying a little bit its route to minimize the impact I think is encouraging, and I'm tending towards voting to approve it as well.
Okay. So Aaron and Maria, I think we would be looking for a staff resolution that is in favor of approving this application. I think highlighting that there won't be any significant trees taken out would be helpful. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It was a cough.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's where we're at. Since we don't have one for tonight, and because I think they're super helpful when we have them written out and they're so clear, I guess we will leave it to next month to finish this out. Is that good, Maria, Aaron?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
Just-
you can
I've
just
got a-
table
Table your,
action. And if you have further deliberations, at the next meeting, that's fine. It'll just be under your regular meeting.
Okay. Great.
I'll just say that I did mistakenly write as for 10 to be not a significant activity. I meant no adverse impact. So
Okay.
I
Okay,
was-
good.
Yep. So I'd like to make a motion that we continue the deliberations to our regular meeting in February.
Okay,
I'll second that.
great. All in favor for, I think it's February 5? All right. Excellent. Thank you
Aye.
to Ms.
thank you.
Mr. Cosby and Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Tom
Thank you.
See you next month.
and
Thank
Jenna.
Thank you.
Okay, So that, so interestingly, we don't actually have any, like regular agenda items tonight. We have a pending application, 23-68, 454 Horse Pond Road. This is, we voted last month that this was a significant activity. We, asked for third-party review. We did a site walk. And it looks like this public hearing, which I know we voted to, I think I actually made the motion last time, that we scheduled the public hearing for February 5th. So tonight, it looks like we need to award the contract for the third-party wetland specialist.
Yes, we did send out RFP to several wetland firms or consultant firms, and we received one response back, and that's from Davison Environmental. That proposal was in your application materials and online, and it was our standard request, basically attendance at one of your meetings. Apologize, I can pull that up. It includes a field walk, site visit, total estimated 6 hours. It will, Eric and Matthew will review the site plan and draft an initial review letter. They will have general correspondence with both staff and the applicant's experts, and again, attend your meetings for the hearing. The estimated amount is $3,100. And the applicant, Tim Mack, has been made aware of that. And so at this point, we would like to be able to let Eric and Matt get started on their review if the agency is agreeable.
Great. Well, that sounds great to me. I assume we need a motion. As long as that sounds great to everyone else.
Yep, I move that we award the contract to Davidson. Is that who it was, Aaron? Davidson?
Davison Environmental, yes.
Davidson Environmental.
Okay, I'll second that. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of awarding the contract to Davison Environmental? Raise your hand, say aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, great. Excellent. All right, so our next is a receipt. This is 23-71, 132 Summerhill Road. Their materials were uploaded onto the website, so hopefully you had a chance to look. Again, so this is received and it's automatically received. This is a chance for us to look at it and see if there's a reason for a site walk, or if we think it's a significant activity, if we need a public hearing.
Yes.
This is our chance to do that.
This property will be familiar to you. You
Yes.
dealt with violation on the property. This is the vacant property that if those of you who have driven by or attended the site walk for the violation, this is not the new house property. It's the one directly to the north, where materials and some storage containers were stockpiled there. As part of that violation process, the corrective action silt fence was installed, and there was some area of clearing that went beyond the 100-foot upland review area. There had been a building permit, a zoning approval and a building permit issued for this property that showed no activity within the upland review area. So as a result of the violation, the applicant has now come back with a modified site development plan that shows, more of a lawn area and potential pool area that more closely resembles the house that was just completed to the south. So I don't know if you want to, if any of you haven't seen the property, I guess that's our biggest question. There's no direct impact or no activities within the wetland. The closest wetland is the Hammonasset River down the hillside. So all of this is within the 100-foot upland review.
The only comment I'll make on this, I looked at the site plan and the swimming pool area and the patio around it doesn't show proposed grading elevations. It does for the house and the septic, but maybe if you could have them add the proposed grade lines for the swimming pool.
But we could do that. I can
Okay,
ask.
that's the only thing.
Okay, so and I believe because I know I think it was only Tom and I on the last site walk to this place.
I drove, I ended up
Yeah.
driving, I ended up driving by it
Yeah, we
later.
drove
Okay.
by it, I think, before.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's easy to see from the road, especially because there is no house there. So I guess unless anybody wants a formal site walk, I would recommend that we
Nope.
drive by and
Yep.
refresh our memories. Okay. Okay. So then that application is received and we will discuss it more fully next month.
Yep.
Great.
Great. All right, so moving right along. So we have 129 Green Hill Road. This is violation. So this, for those who are on the sidewalk, this is the clearing of vegetation, cutting of trees around a pond. And we met with the applicant last month and asked for delineated wetland from a wetland scientist. And so we are following up on that. And we have the homeowner here.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, you gotta go down now. Thanks so much. Okay. Yes, so sorry, also bedtime here. And we submitted the wetlands delineation that Michelle Ford completed on our property. Hopefully you guys got, can you see me or can you just hear me?
Just
we can
here.
just hear you.
Oh, is it?
Do you need to, do you need to be seen, Jessica?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I'm okay if you're okay.
we're okay.
All right. As I'm like flipping through, so I just wanted to make sure. So yes, so did you get the wetlands delineation?
Yeah, I could share it if you'd like.
Map, okay. So that was done by Michelle Ford, who is a wetland and soil scientist, as well as a number of other biologists and impressive credentials. So highly qualified to kind of help us with this.
So I guess, Jessica, this is Erin. As we look at the, Maria is screen sharing it's a GIS based map that Michelle used to show her flagging, which is essentially the entire area at the, once you kind of cross over that water course. And we walk, the extent as we walked around the pond, you could see that is all confirmed to be within inland wetland soils. And that does kind of open up to the property to the east as well, the condo association. And then there's that water course that travels to the west. And ultimately goes, there's a culvert and it heads back out towards Green Hill Road. So with respect to the violation itself, I know the property owners had talked about, and Maria wrote this in her memo to you, had talked about some potential future plans for farming and other activities on the property, but it might be beneficial to focus now on just the tree cutting and some type of mitigation plan for that area. And so it would be staff's question for the agency and really a recommendation to see, we talked about inventorying the trees that were removed, the size of them and the number of them. And if that's something that perhaps the property owner can engage Michelle Ford to do, and to start talking about possible restoration plan for that area. Does that, we talked about a survey as well, but really if we're separating out future activities, there may not be a need for a survey at this point. There could be for future farming activities, but at this point with the wetlands delineation, to try to get a restoration plan going so that once we get into the spring, we can have some plantings take place. That would be our priority.
Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to get those the tree and the DBH that the circumference diameter breast height of those trees that were cut down and the number and the species, which I think you should be able to do. There's still leaves, you can tell from bark. That would be helpful. And yes, I saw the staff report. Hopefully everyone else did as well. It follows a lot of our standard language and requests for these types of wetland violations to try to restore to the extent possible what happens. Other comments from the agency?
No, I think staff recommendations were good, and I think we should just do what we need to do to move forward with them, is what I would suggest.
Yeah. Okay.
Jessica, is that something that you've talked to Michelle about? Any other conversations of the area?
Yeah.
What and potential restoration?
Yes, sorry. I want to make sure you're finished speaking. Yes, we talked extensively during the delineation and the flagging. We have flags on our like physical flags on our property right now. Kind of going over everything from the types of trees. She said it'd be maybe difficult to identify all of them, but that certainly she would be able to even map out like the location and the trees cut within like a 6-inch DBH. She can estimate the species and kind of map out the location and the extent of the deposited like woody debris, if that would help with our restoration. Yes, we can have that. We can have that done with Michelle. She's
excellent. Did she give you a time frame on how long that would take her to accomplish that?
No, sorry, she didn't give a time frame, but it did seem something that was pretty plausible to do, within this next month. I think the only little hiccup was because it is like the leaves have fallen and the trees are decaying. She mentioned just that it would be a bit challenging in all the cases to be able to reach an identification to the species, but that certainly she would be able to map the location of the cut trees and location of the cut woody stems within 6 inches DBH. I'm sorry, I'm not a total expert. I'm not an expert at all in this area. So I'm going off of what our conversations were in my notes that I took with her. And so we wanted to make sure we were still in line with what the agency recommended and required of us before we got all those details.
Okay. So the trees, she should be able to identify most of those trees.
Yeah.
They're not decaying that quickly. Luckily, trees don't disintegrate. And I guess, and my understanding is everything has stayed the same. So, right, the trees are just left in the pond and the stumps are where they are. So everything is kind of in situ. Yes.
Correct. We haven't touched anything.
Okay.
I think, sorry. So her note was that since some of the trees have been moved or fell out of reach, identification to species might be challenging in all the cases, but that certainly she would, I think, be able to do most, if not, and be able to provide, an educated guess to the ones that she couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be great. And I think just looking over the staff report, so part of what we recommended these cases is, as Aaron and Maria pointed out, corrective action, so that, be coming up with a restorative planting plan and coming back with that to the agency, along with information on the trees that have been cut, so that we have an idea what was there, which will help, and that will help you and Michelle Ford come up with a plan to kind of mitigate what happened. So are there any other, from the agency members, are there any other questions or other information? Okay.
Are you
So
comfortable with Madam Chair, are you comfortable with a February, giving a month to get that plan? That'll give you time to kind of go through it.
yeah, it would be great, yes, to have a plan for the next meeting. Because even though it doesn't seem like it, spring will be here and not too many meetings away. Well, that's a good time for planting and getting things going. And it'll be better to get that site stabilized and on its way to whatever its next step is.
So just to reiterate, I just want to make sure I have my notes clear. The number of trees that were cut, the exact number of trees that are cut, the species, and the DBH.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And then also, Jessica, recommendations from Michelle as far as a restoration plan for the area, what she
Got it.
feels would be appropriate for that area.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Understood.
So Aaron, Maria, is this something that we need to vote on, or this is a continuing conversation and
Well, yeah, it's definitely a continuing conversation, but I think it's helpful to take action on that and ask the property owners to provide this information by the February 5th meeting so that we can continue to, this is kind of a check-in meeting because the deadline for submitting a wetland delineation was today. So we've achieved that marker and now, which is good. And now we're looking for a little more detailed information.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we ask the property owner to get the information on the number of trees cut, the species of the trees cut to the best of their ability to get that information, as well as the size as generally reported as DBH, diameter by height. So all the tree information, and also to consult with wetland scientists to come up with a restoration plan for the area that has been cleared. Okay. Any amendments or discussion of the motion? Oh, I do. And to have this by the next meeting, February 5th.
I was just going to say by February 5th meeting.
Wait. Okay, so I'm amending that for that information to be back to us by the February 5th meeting. Okay, all in favor of the motion as amended, raise your hand. Okay, excellent.
Uh,
So thank you, and that's helpful, Jessica, and we'll see you back next month.
Thank you. I just I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know it's you have a lot to deal with. But we did submit a letter, and I was just hoping that the agency members were able to read it, and just wanted to just confirm that you received it.
So I'm looking through.
Did it not get put in the records?
Hold on.
When I clicked, I had the boundary overview, the complaint, the signed card, the warning letter, maps, the cease and desist. I didn't see.
No, I
any-
don't see that letter.
I
I
don't see.
don't either. And I know
any.
she sent it because we had a discussion about it.
We can send that out tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
Jessica, for the
That's right.
agents to read through. I apologize for that.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you so much. It's nothing. It was just something that we really felt like was important to clarify, but we're
No,
not
of course.
specifically. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
And thank
everyone.
you for letting us know. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Good
thank you.
night.
Okay, so now we are on to a show cause hearing, 22-36 Race Hill Road. This is for a regulated activity permit that we issued for a 20-foot span, 6-foot rise galvanized steel structural plate bottomless arch culvert to go over a private driveway over Dowd Hollow Brook. As you probably saw from the letter, what was delineated or what we asked for in the permit apparently did not happen, but we have Mr. Ott here to chat with us about this.
Can you hear us, Mike? Oh, there you go.
I can. Can you guys hear me?
Can hear
We
you.
can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, huh, that's funny. My video,
I think, yeah, I think Maria gave, well, unless you have to screen share something.
no, I don't think so, but
Okay.
I guess let's see how our discussion goes. So just for the record, yeah, Maria's promoting me right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think I'm back if you guys can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
So, Maria, or just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors, here in Madison. So Mr. Udoff, the owner of the property, and he was the applicant also for the application, that received the regulated activity permit for the crossing, couldn't be here this evening, so he asked me to attend. He, reached out to me late Friday afternoon, about around 4 o'clock. And we talked about his project, and I went to the site on Saturday morning, trying to beat the snow, thinking we were going to get a lot of snow, and took some photographs and jotted down some notes while I was there of things that I think need to be taken care of immediately. I spoke with him this morning and let him know that I did that, and I went over the things that I think need to be taken care of. Let's see. I think the main thing right now is that they actually should not be performing any work at that project now because of the Connecticut DEP's restriction that I believe you all made a condition of approval that work could not
Yes.
occur during the winter months. Is that
That's right.
correct?
Yes.
So I explained to him that they need to shut down, not that they really haven't been doing any work, but I explained to him that they need to shut the project down until at a minimum April 1st. So in the interim, like I said, I've given him a list of things that he needs to do that include moving all materials and equipment up away from the stream channel and out of the floodplain, fixing up the temporary construction entrance, reinstalling all the silt fence, the geotextile silt fence sediment control barrier that they've installed is not installed correctly. It needs to be all taken out and reinstalled. Putting the temporary timber mat crossing back in place. They've got only half of it in place right now, for some reason. So I think if they do all those things, they will make sure that the site is stabilized and protected, that sedimentation control barriers in place. And like I said, all the equipment and materials will be out of the floodplain. So the site should be okay for the winter with, regular inspections. It should be looked at to make sure that the sediment control barrier doesn't need any maintenance. I think in the coming months between now and April, the owner is going to retain I choose my words carefully, an experienced contractor who has experience with this type of work. And also there are some things that were required by your approval, and I'm going by memory here. One of them was to post an erosion and sediment control bond.
Yes.
If I understand it right from speaking with Aaron, that was never done. There are several things that were on my plan that weren't done. They were the contractor's supposed to submit a temporary water handling. Submit a water handling plan to me for review, and a temporary crossing plan to me for review. I don't remember all of the other conditions of approval, but maybe Aaron, if you have that handy, could you run down that list?
I
I
think
can share it.
Maria,
Yeah.
Maria has she can screen share it. One of the concerns that I wanted to ask you about, Mike, is the cofferdam that was installed. What do you recommend at this point for making sure that's stabilized? And maybe I just missed you saying it, but did you recommend that be additional sandbags be added to that now at this time?
Yes. So
Okay.
I do not think that the temporary sandbag cofferdam should be removed from the stream, and the reason is that it appears that what they did is they started the excavation for the culvert foundation on the far side of the watercourse, and they put the sandbag cofferdam in place to isolate that area of work from the stream flow, to direct the stream flow away from it. But they stopped work, and so now they have a disturbed bare earth bank on the far side. And if the temporary cofferdam is removed, that bank would be subject to high velocity stream flow, and I'm afraid that it will cut and erode and send sediment downstream. So I think that the temporary cofferdam should remain in place until they start work again in April. However, they didn't install that properly, and they need to raise it with other sandbags. They need to cap it and raise it up in elevation. They didn't make it high enough. So if I understand it right, it overtopped when it's after some of the rainfall events that we've had, when we've had high stream flow. So that's one of the recommendations that I made to him also this morning.
I have a quick question. It sounds like you haven't been involved And so are you not the design engineer?
I am. I was the design engineer, as you know, but he did not involve me after the regulated activity permit was approved.
Well, one of the conditions, condition 5 is construction of the arch culvert shall be monitored by both the design engineer and a
Mhm.
certified professional wetland scientist.
You're right.
Well,
Condition
that's
5.
why that's why I wanted Aaron to read the conditions because I can't remember them all. But yes, that's correct. He did not do that. I started earlier I'm going by memory. I don't have the document in front of me.
Yeah, I don't
But
know why I can't bring it up now.
I started earlier to say that there were conditions of approval that weren't met. And that's why I asked for the document to be brought up.
Okay,
So
I'll
no,
go
I have not been involved.
Is there, but you, I mean, you did this, I guess, this is, you know, it's a kind of big deal as far as the number of things that are wrong with what's happening. And, you know, we had a very lengthy back and forth with you about these conditions and about this, you know, about this application and about why it was deemed a significant activity. And so I don't understand why, knowing that we had these conversations and that you know, you knew about the conditions because you were there at the meeting when we put the conditions on, why you weren't involved, because your name is on this and, you know, it's pretty egregious, really.
So I don't know if you're familiar with this, KLL, but the owner, of course I was familiar with the conditions. I don't remember when this was approved. Can you scroll down and see when the approval date was? So this was over a
Over a
year.
year ago.
Right. So of course I was aware of the conditions. And of course I understand this is a significant activity, but what you and maybe the other commissioners may not, or agency members may not understand is a consulting engineer can't force an owner to meet the conditions. When this was approved and when he received this letter, I spoke to him after the approval, but he did not involve me. I didn't even know that they had started work here. He did not involve me in the project. He didn't meet, more than likely he didn't meet, I'm scanning them now while I'm talking, but more than likely he didn't meet any of these conditions.
No,
That's correct.
he
Right.
didn't.
I found out that they started work um by somebody I know who had to drive by and told me that they had started work on the project. So I I you seem to be I'm getting the impression that you think that I've done something wrong here. But I
No,
haven't.
I am shocked
No,
at how badly, at how just flagrantly bad the owner, I guess, you know, just
it,
ignored all of this. Like, we spent
it
months talking about this and making
and
these conditions, and it was just like all that time is gone, and there's probably damage to the stream because of what they've done.
so I was surprised also, and it is, I don't know if I'd use the word egregious, but it's pretty bad. It's
Oh,
been,
I would use the word
to be
egregious.
honest, it hasn't been done. I think what happened, and I've told Aaron this, I think what's happened here is the owner has no experience in, in construction or land use permitting or, how to do this. And he relied on, it seems that he hired friends of his to do the work. And it turned out that that was a bad decision. It appears that, in my opinion, based on other projects I've worked on, whoever the contractor, whoever was doing the work is inexperienced with this type of work. The work, I don't know exactly when they started, but I now understand that they've been up there for months, many months. Many months ago, the work started. I found that out from the downstream property owner. And in most instances, with an experienced contractor, this work would have been done, the project would have been complete a long time ago. But I gather that they would start to work and then stop, and it would sit for weeks and there would be no activity. And then they would start again. And they've really truthfully made no progress and really made a mess, as I told Aaron, of the site. And I think it's based on inexperience. And I told the owner that. After I went up there yesterday morning, I explained exactly that to the owner this morning. And I told him that it'd be my recommendation that he hire an experienced contractor going forward.
Well, I think what you sense is frustration on my part and for the agency that we spent a lot of time talking about this and going through this and you know and
Mhm.
none of these conditions are met. And I understand that the owner can do what he wants, but you are the person who is advocating for this project and you're here. So we're talking
Well,
to you. And
well,
and
I'm here trying to help him at his request.
yeah,
And again, he contacted me Friday afternoon at, I believe it was 4:15.
yeah.
So and I took my time on a Saturday morning to go up there. So, and inspect the site and take photographs and take notes, which I could show you if you'd like, but,
We
um,
have
I,
years.
When did he
I,
get our letter? Like, did he contact you immediately upon getting our letter? Or do you know what triggered
no,
him?
Mm-mm.
no, as Aaron knows, I got a copy of the letter, so I knew about it. He did not contact, in fact, he's received 2 letters. He contacted me, this past Friday afternoon at about 4:15. I remember the time because I remember looking at my watch and saying to him that town staff goes home at noon on Fridays. I remember looking at my watch and it was 4:15. So no, he did not contact me. He waited. I believe he got, and Maria can confirm, or Aaron, I believe he got an earlier letter several weeks ago.
We sent him a
Again,
non-compliance letter December 19th.
there
Have
you
you
go.
met him, Maria? Have you and Aaron met the owner or?
I have not met the owner, no.
There's never anyone out on the site when you go. It appears there's lights on site that this may be an off hours that they've been working at night as well. I guess my first thought is, is to get the site stabilized, and I really, um, and maybe it is just inexperience. But from, you have choices. You have choice. You can revoke a permit. You can suspend a permit, or you could, give the property owner a directive where these conditions of this permit need to be met within, by a certain date. In my opinion, I think 2 weeks to have an experienced contractor come in, clean up the site, button it up at least so for the winter time it's fine. I think immediately posting the ENS control bond would be appropriate. And then I think there needs to be ultimately, when a contractor is hired, the property owner should be providing you the name and contact information of who the manager, who's managing the project on site, who can coordinate and work with staff, and both the design engineer. We could say the design engineer and a wetland scientist, but it's up to the property owner to hire Mike and to hire the wetland scientist to come out and inspect the property. So I guess it depends on how you'd like to, if you'd like to give him an opportunity to remedy the situation and see where we go, or if you'd like to take a different, more concern or more punitive, I guess. I don't know. what's the word I'm looking for. Joe, we can't hear you. You're muted.
So it's hard for us to even trust the property owner to even find someone. Well, obviously, we're gonna request they get a soil scientist to establish how much damage is done, and then we're gonna have him adhere to the condition to work with his design engineer, Mike. But then after that, how do we even trust he'll find someone who will adequately do the job? So I'm kind of
You-
in favor of just enforcing the cease and desist until he gets in front of us so we can tell him to his face what to do.
So you can't, in my, you don't, no inland wetland commission or agency has any authority over what contractor gets hired. Just like the two culvert replacement projects that happened fairly recently in town, one on County Road and one on, I forget the name of the road, in Heatherwood. You issued a regulated activity permit for this project, but you can't, the town can't be involved in the selection of the contractor. And although you can say you don't trust him, or how could you trust him? And I understand why you would say that. It's human nature to think that. You really, unfortunately, you just have to leave that to him. What you can do, and this is just my opinion, what you can do, however, is make sure that the conditions of approval get enforced. And if you want to, I would imagine, and Aaron can correct me, you can add additional conditions, given what's happened here. And you also really shouldn't say the design engineer. What, in my opinion, what you should say is a professional engineer. Because an applicant, an owner can hire anybody to observe the project, to make sure that the conditions of approval are being met and that the project's being constructed properly. I mean, that's my experience. I think what's happened here is the owner didn't understand, and I didn't choose to be here. I don't want to be here. But I feel sorry for him. He didn't understand, and he relied on his buddies who must have told him they knew how to do this, and clearly they did not. So they've really made no progress. They've kind of made a mess of the site. I walked downstream. I think I see sediment in the stream channel. I explained this to both Maria and Aaron. I see evidence. Everything I'm telling you, I've told Aaron and Maria. I saw evidence of an excavator that had been in the wetland along the roadside of the watercourse, outside of the limits of construction. I was told this morning that they did that because they unhooked the anchor of the timber mat to prevent it from floating downstream. And sure enough, a section of it started to float downstream. So they took an excavator downstream, apparently, this is what I'm told, to retrieve the floated section. And in doing so, they left the work limits, and there's clearly, if you go up there and look at it, there's excavator tracks in the wetland alongside the stream outside of the work limits. So with regard to damage, that's what I see, the excavator tracks in the wetland on both sides of the stream, as well as I'm quite sure what I saw Saturday morning was sediment in the stream channel that extended probably, I'm guessing 30, 40 feet downstream. That's what I saw. Other than that, the site is just kind of a mess. Then there's equipment and material in places where it really shouldn't be. It should all be moved up out of the floodplain.
Mike, there was evidence. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that
go
you,
ahead.
Kayla?
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to also add that there was evidence of when the contractor was dewatering, and that water coming out, it was just being pumped. and the fabric bag was not operational, and so there was evidence of sediment um, making its way back down from the upland on the other side of the water course, back towards the stream itself.
So I didn't see that, but you're right. There is no, all I can tell you is Saturday morning, there was no geotextile filter bag on the site. There also, it's a little confusing when you look at it, when you go up there, there is sediment deposition upstream of the project site. From these high flow post rainfall events that we've had. I don't know where it's coming from. It could be a sediment source that's been upstream and got dislodged and moved in after these rainfall events and high flows. But there's definitely sedimentation, evidence of sediment deposition on the stream channel banks upstream of the site. So you gotta look carefully when you go up there, because it can be a little confusing. The color difference in the sediment is pretty obvious. The stuff coming from upstream is very, very light in color. And the sediment that I think came from the sandbags that were used to construct the cofferdam is a reddish brown color. And that's what I see. That's what I saw in the stream channel downstream.
Okay. I saw lighter sand. So that must have been.
Yeah, I have a feeling, because I saw it upstream too, well upstream. And I have a feeling that's coming from upstream someplace. And it's never been there before. It's a result of these rainfall events and high flows. In the times that I've been on that site, I had never seen it before.
So would it make sense as far as impacts from the lack of ENS controls to have the wetland scientists to visit the site and take a look and assess impacts? That could be, and Mike is correct, that you can add additional conditions to the permit at this point based off of so you could suspend the permit pending certain corrective actions that you would like to see taken, or you can add additional conditions or give directions to the property or directives to the property owner now.
So I think so, adding conditions is great. We went through this and did have conditions. We had a whole permit that's very clearly outlined what's supposed to happen.
Right.
So doing this again with someone who just disregarded that doesn't seem, that just seems like we're spinning wheels. I guess I'm in favor of suspending the permit until corrective actions are taken. I don't, given what's happened, this was a significant activity. We asked for very, very clearly for a number of conditions to be met, none of which have been met. And just trusting that if we say, okay, here's more conditions, I'm not sure that makes any sense, because.
Well, you're right. That's exactly right. When you have a violation, the remedy is not to issue a permit, because a permit is optional. So really in that case, when you have a violation, it does make sense to give directives and deadlines from the agent.
So you just hit the nail on the head, and I didn't get to finish what I was saying earlier. What I was saying was my understanding is you can add conditions if you want. I think you should put deadlines on them so that that they're being met, and you have to enforce them. You have to ensure that the conditions are being met. And in my experience, the way to do that, to not put an undue or unusual burden on town staff, is to make one of the conditions of approval be that I'm involved in a project like this in Guilford right now, where the town said, you applicant shall hire a professional engineer. You shall give us that person's name and contact info by a certain date, and that person shall submit reports to us on some periodic basis, whatever you guys decide. In Guilford, it's weekly. I would, if I could, I would suggest with this type of project and with an experienced contractor, I'd make it weekly also, because work will happen fast with an experienced contractor. So that's what I was trying to get at, Kealoha, is that will give you some teeth, and it won't be the same thing as before. If you put deadlines on it, and if you require inspections, you require a weekly reporting, you'll know exactly what's going on there. And you'll know that that the conditions are being met.
Now, Mike, you were obviously, involved in this before, and I know that he contacted you or, with the letter. You're here for him tonight, but he didn't say, I need help, I'm hiring you forever and ever, right? Or
No, he doesn't, honestly, I'm telling you the truth. He honestly just doesn't understand. He
needed help right now.
He knows he needs help, and he asked me if I would go, and I said yes.
Okay.
What was I couldn't say no to him. And I didn't have another meeting tonight, so I was free. Will he likely hire me? If you do what I just said, if you require a professional engineer, you require inspections and reports to town staff, would he likely hire me? Sure. And I'd be glad to do it. I don't really need the work, but I'd be glad to do it.
And then if he did, you would recommend certain contractors, right? In order for him to.
I told him this morning.
Okay.
I told him this morning. I told him Friday afternoon too. I said, I can give you a list of contractors if you'd like that are experienced. And I rattled them off. I rattled off the names to him.
Okay.
Actually, I told you this morning.
I know. I just wasn't sure if you had told him that, if he was considering that, or if he's waiting for,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah. No, he's not. I know it. I know it's your reactions are normal. It's human nature, but I'm not reacting the same way only because I've been through this a lot. I have a major wetland violation in Old Saybrook now that Martin has been hired by the town to review. So Martin knows what happens with these things. I'm not reacting the same way as you guys because I've been through this so many times, and I'm just trying to give you my opinion of what I think you could do that will give you control and will ensure that this gets done properly. It's unfortunate that the owner relied on his friends and that they didn't know what they were doing. And they, by all accounts, they have been working on this for a very long time and really haven't made any progress. And these rainfall events that we had and these high stream flows brought this to shined a spotlight on the project. If I understand it right, the downstream property owner came into the town hall to talk to you guys, right? He also came to my office one day last week.
Besides suspending the permit, to cease and desist or whatever you want to call it, Mike, we've got some heavy rainfalls coming in, a little snowfall here and there.
Yeah.
Is there something that really should be done? I mean, we're talking about sediment downstream or whatever. Is there something that we can enforce or we as a commission should do to alleviate? I know you said that some of these it was done incorrectly and some of these have breached over the sandbags of what's there. Is there something that you would suggest that possibly we should or the owner should do immediately to alleviate any further damage than what's already been done?
I do. So, and I'm telling you this, and I'll put my town engineer hat on. This is what I think should be done. I think immediately, and I think you should put, and Aaron mentioned this earlier, you should put a deadline on this. But immediately, immediately, and you can also put a condition on it that it be observed by a licensed professional engineer if you want, and and that a report be sent back to you all to make sure it's been done right. But I would suggest that immediately all materials and all equipment be moved out of the floodplain. They should be moved to high ground, way away from the watercourse channel. The temporary construction entrance needs to be fixed up, reworked, and extended to the edge of the road. All the silt fence needs to be reinstalled properly. It's just not installed properly. The timber mat needs to be put back in place, and the anchor that they did have should be reinstalled. And the sandbag cofferdam should be raised. It should be raised with additional sandbags so that it's unlikely that it would overtop again. And I do think that because they excavated on the far side, exposing that bare earth bank to high velocity stream flow would be a mistake. So I think the cofferdam should stay. So it really would stay, if you think about it, it would stay for the remainder of January, February, and March. Possibly, potentially April 1, they'd be within the work period window. If the weather's right and if the stream flows low enough, potentially they could start work. Who knows? They may not be able to start till May. They may not be able to start again till June. Who knows? But
Mike,
potentially they could start April 1.
what about the pipes, the temporary pipes for stream flow? Should that go in now as
No,
well?
no,
Right.
they should just be moved like out of the floodplain like everything else.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I think should be done. And then I think I also think, and I mentioned this earlier, that the site should be inspected periodically in this interim time period. Because silt fence can blow out, silt fence can fall down. Kids could, knock it over. So the site should be inspected periodically in this interim period until they start work again. And starting work again is entirely up to you guys. That's what I think should be done.
And immediately posting ENS control bond
Yes.
as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's yeah, actually, yeah. That's why that's the one condition that I think I think you and I talked about it, Aaron, actually this morning.
I think well, I guess not what I think, but these are all it was going to be my suggestion to go through the condition list and place dates on them if as part of directives, because they're you have to address what's not what's an immediate problem with the project, and then whether or not the project moves forward is another thing, but we do have to address erosion and sedimentation. The other item that Mike did not mention, I've noted all of these points, and I do think that inspecting monthly during the off season, and having that, I like this idea of the professional engineer. I happen to be the enforcement staff for receiving Mike's weekly reports from a construction project in Guilford. And the commission really did appreciate that. And Guilford tends to do that more regularly as part of their permits. But I was going to say, as far as the sediment, that may be another additional directive that the commission would want to give to the property owner, to have a wetland scientist inspect downstream now to see what impacts there are, if any, from the lack of erosion controls and poor management of the site.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess my question is, and this goes back to, I guess, the whole reason we're here is so we have all of this and we send this letter and we have these deadlines. How do we then enforce that? Because none of these got enforced. and they were disregarded or not looked at. And so at
You-
one point we talked about there were fines, like daily fines, if you didn't meet certain conditions. I'm not sure, I couldn't find anything in our regulations, but
For
you know,
citations?
well,
Right, so,
yeah, it's just like, so where, how,
so this
oh,
is an
great.
enforcement right now, so this is there are steps to take. And so the applicant, as Maria had sent a letter to the property owner of a non-compliance letter, gave an opportunity for him to respond. He failed to do so. An enforcement order was issued with this show cause hearing. So this is enforcement.
Right.
And now from here, this is where your choice is. So if you'd like to give an opportunity of, a 2-week span to get some of these directives done, and revisit you at the next meeting to evaluate, you can do that. I think if there's a blatant ignoring of your directives here, then yes, you can then take additional action. You do, prior to issuing any citations, you do have to issue an enforcement order, which you have done. So that would be the next appropriate step following a failure to comply with the corrective action.
Okay.
Is it possible remedy just to pull the permit, not let them go forward with the project?
Yes, that's part of, it's in section 15 something. I read through that.
Yes.
It is possible to revoke, suspend, or have these corrections.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like that would be kind of an incentive to
Get his attention.
get his attention. And I also think, I don't know when the timing's right. I think he's got to be at one of these meetings, Mike, rather than making you carry the load, because I think he's got to hear some of our concerns. And
Yeah, again, I agree with you. I'm not, I think I told Aaron or Maria, or maybe both of them this morning, this is the last thing I want to be doing. Not because I don't mind coming to a meeting and seeing you guys, but it's embarrassing for me. And I have to say, I knew sure enough that I'd be somehow looked at as I've done something wrong. And I don't like being involved in these things. I spent, just like you just said it, I spent a lot of time designing it. I spent a lot of time at the site. I spent a lot of time properly designing it. I spent time with you guys explaining it. I spent time with the owner explaining it, and the owner didn't follow through. Not all owners follow through.
yeah, I for one aren't blaming you for anything, but
No, I know you're not.
I'm just wondering whether that could even be a condition of the permit going forward, having him come and
Well,
Are we,
I can,
on the record commit
yeah.
to
are
do
we
it.
allowed to subpoena?
No, I think, ultimately, we need to get, we need to get that site set up for winter.
Well, no, that
I
comes
agree. That's
And-
like my main concern right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
it needs to be set up. I think it needs to be made clear that, that if these directives that have time limits aren't met, that yes, we could revoke the permit. Like,
You
there's
could,
no bridge.
yeah. And Kay Aloha, you said earlier, when you said, how could you enforce this? I thought what you were trying to say is, how do we make sure this gets done? And I think,
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
gotcha.
yes, partly. How do
Yeah.
we get it done? But
Right.
having, we do, and like you said, all of us here spent time drafting this regulated activity permit that was very clear about the steps that needed to be, that it was significant, that X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah.
so clearly, whatever the reason, I get maybe he doesn't understand, but if he's ignoring letters from the office, there's a certain lack of caring about getting this done. And so it is about, getting it done maybe, but also, we need to figure out how to deal with it now. And it's not a given. He doesn't get to do this project if he doesn't do it right.
Right.
I mean,
and you're right. And so here's a scenario that could happen. Let's say I'm the person who gets hired, and for the first 2 weeks everything's fine, and my first two reports back to Aaron and Maria say everything's fine. And then after that, he's not following through anymore, or they're doing something wrong and they're not listening, they're not correcting what they've done wrong. My report's going to show that. And you all would have the ability to take action. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's how, I mean, as soon as I report, or whoever it is, but if it's me, as soon as you get this has happened in Guilford, actually. When you get a report that indicates, I'm making this up, there's a lack of sedimentation control barriers, and the contractor was notified that they had to be put back in place properly, and 2 days went by and they weren't done, and the contractor was notified again. And if you see something like that, my understanding is you have the ability to shut it down.
Yeah.
So, but without those, not every project warrants this kind of thing, but without those periodic inspections and reports, you have no idea what's happening
Obviously.
up there.
Right, but I guess and I guess I would go back to say we did have that in our conditions. I mean, it said it needed to be supervised. It didn't spell it out like weekly, which obviously we need to do, but it was in there.
Yeah.
We can't have there's 7 or 8 conditions, and some of them are saying you need to report back, you need to tell us, and that just didn't happen. So
Right.
and that's where you go like, well, okay, we have it in there and they're not listening.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, we can be, we can have specific deadlines and be on top of it. And, hopefully he will realize that if he wants a bridge, then he needs to comply with his regulated activity permit.
Agreed, yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, an experienced contractor will do everything I said that needs to be done with this site in one day. It's really not a lot of work. It's very easy to make this site now stable and safe for the winter. Very, very easy. But it's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing.
So would we be able to suspend the permit with these conditions under time frame? And these conditions being, clean up XYZ.
Right.
What we just talked.
That's a great question. So can we have these directives in place to get the ENS stuff in the bond, all of that, everything that Mike said, plus the wetland scientists, and just say it's suspended, like you don't have a permit,
Yes.
active permit until you meet these conditions.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
possible, Aaron or Maria?
Yes, I would go further and give him a date to have them submitted. So
Yeah,
you could suspend the permit until your next meeting, or, for however long you'd like, but you can say, by January 17th, you will have,
Okay.
You need to reinstall the silt fence, put the timber mat in place with anchor, raise the coffer dam, fix the construction entrance, and submit bond. And then I would say if you reinstate the permit, then you can amend the permit with the monitoring reports. We could draft that up for your next meeting and have that revised language, so that when you reinstate, now you have additional conditions, the weekly reporting, the off-season reporting. Although I would put as your directive that the wetland scientists should come out within the next couple of weeks as well to evaluate now, that's kind of hoping that the wetland scientist has an opportunity to come out in the next 2 weeks. That one, it might be by your next meeting, to give you a report on any impacts downstream.
Yeah. Okay. I think that sounds great. I think, I don't know what other people think, but I think that would be great, is to have that, just have it suspended and then have these conditions met, have the site buttoned up in 2 weeks and the wetland scientists out by the next meeting.
And the permit stays suspended until the next meeting when we meet.
Yes,
Right.
Until you reinstate
yeah,
Until-
with additional conditions.
exactly. Yeah.
So 2 weeks, let me look at the calendar here.
I was gonna say, I think 2 weeks, the 17th is like a week and a half, which I think if these activities need to be completed, that's a more than fair amount of time for the 17th.
That's fine with me.
Fine with me. I mean, we're gonna have weather coming in. I mean, they need to get that set up and buttoned up.
The 17th is what, a week from Friday?
It's next Wednesday.
Next
Wednesday.
Is that doable, Mike, do you think?
I think it is. It's subject to, the only thing I can think of is subject to finding a contractor
We're hiring somebody.
who's experienced and can get out there and do it. I really don't. I actually think it's less than a day's worth of work. I'm being conservative by saying a day. It's relatively easy, honestly. But if you started making calls tomorrow, I guess the trick would be, can you find a contractor who knows how to do this, and can he or she come between now and the deadline day? But if you impose that deadline, he's just going to have to.
Yeah,
He's gonna-
you
he's
can
gonna
always,
have
you
to.
can always extend deadlines. If you push the deadline out too far, then,
Yeah.
if you can't make it, have him come to us and go, yeah, I need another couple of days. I got a contractor hired. Fine.
Right.
See, I don't know. I think we should stick to that deadline. I think, we should have documentation in hand with those inspections, and final documentation that activities were completed by the 17th,
Well,
or
I
your permit
agree.
revoked.
It's just if you can't get a contractor, then you give them an extension. I mean, but yeah, I would suggest sticking with that deadline the best you can. Again,
How long-
contractors are tough.
Okay.
How long would that extension be?
Oh, that's up to the contractor when he can get out there, but right now we put the deadline on the 17th. He's got a deadline of the 17th. That's what he needs to abide by. Again, if you can't get a contractor, it's not his fault. It's the fact that he can't get a contractor, but he can call me. I can get him a contractor.
Mhm.
Well, it sounds like
In all
Mike can just help us.
reality, some of these items were noticed, December 18th. So that's a month after his
Right,
initial
he should have done most of
notification.
this.
So
Yeah, he's had plenty of time. I think
Right.
it's the 17th, and if there's some extenuating circumstances, he will have to come and,
Right.
make that clear to town staff.
you would need a motion to go through suspension of the, or at least encompass all of this in a motion.
Okay.
Just to make that one.
I make a motion that we suspend the regulated activity permit for 22-36 Race Hill Road until at least until the next meeting, where we can then add conditions as need be. And the suspension, so I'm not wording this right. So we'll suspend the permit until next meeting. In the meantime, the applicant by the 17th needs to meet the conditions of the ENS bond to have I'm not gonna remember it all.
I can highlight your notes if
Your
that's
notes.
helpful, Kayaloa. You had fixed the construction entrance, noted, reinstall the filter fabric fencing, reinstall the timber mat in place with anchors, raise the coffer dam,
Um,
Move all the material out
Oh,
of the
yes.
floodplain?
That's right. Move all of the equipment out and materials out of the floodplain.
Right. And also have wetland scientists come between now and the next meeting to assess what has happened to the site.
Yeah, that covers it all.
Okay.
as well as having someone inspect the site on a weekly basis.
Well, that'll be,
That's
after when
that's
we
after. Yeah. That'll be when we that's
reinstate the permit. That could be a condition after.
right.
Okay, so we wouldn't get any pictures of the site fixed up.
Yeah, do we
Oh.
need any?
Oh,
You
Yeah.
can have
We can.
photographs
Yeah.
submitted.
We can do that.
Yeah, and I think Anna might also be saying, should you also, or maybe Aaron mentioned this. I think maybe you did, Aaron, I'm sorry. Yes, Anna, I think that makes sense to have somebody report back to you that it's been done properly, and maybe you did mention this, Aaron, to have the overwinter period, or the period between now, the suspension of the permit, and whenever you might decide to reinstate it, should there be periodic inspections of the erosion and sediment controls to make sure that they're being properly maintained.
Agreed.
Okay, I've got that.
Yeah, and then if I could suggest, don't say weekly on that. What like, if you remember, Aaron, what we've done in Guilford was we said
After every
we-
rainfall.
well, actually, after a significant rainfall event, which is defined, in the stormwater quality manual and in the ENS guidelines, half an inch within a 24-hour period or greater within a 24-hour period. So that could occur, one's going to occur, I guess, tomorrow. And so you don't want to wait.
A week.
Yeah, you don't want to, you want to make sure that inspection happened right after that event. You know what I mean?
Within 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And that inspection would include a report of sorts, right?
Yeah. I would say, yeah.
so having reports. So all of that is the motion.
Second,
So are there any more comments on this motion that luckily, hopefully Aaron and Maria have been taking copious notes?
Got it.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hands.
aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Mike, for your help. I realize
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
not what you want to be doing, but thank you for helping.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, no, no, thank you. I understand. I know this is a disappointment. I totally understand. So hopefully we'll get it under control and get it straightened out and get it done properly at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so I think we have an easier application. So next on our agenda
How
is
easy, it's already been done.
yeah,
been done.
exactly. Oh yeah, exactly. It's super easy. So 25-56-122 Summerhill Road, there was a property transfer for that house with the pool and etc. was transferred to someone else or
The owner.
the owner.
Yes, so as you know, that was the developer, and so they have an
Yeah.
agreement to allow the developer to come back onto the property to monitor the plants and for the condition.
Okay.
But the pool itself now has transferred to the property owner.
Okay, great. Okay, and that's lovely that is
Good to know.
yeah, it's already done. Okay, I see Anna had to leave. So we have our approval of the minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of December 4th, 2023, and the sidewalk meetings from December 16th, 2023. I read through them. I thought they looked fine. I didn't see anything huge pop out. Did anybody else?
No, I read through the regular meeting because that's the one I was at. I didn't see anything.
Okay. And there was thank you for whoever took minutes, that there's a little more detail on the site walk that has that balance, I think, that Joe had mentioned last time. So there's thank you, Maria. There was it was nice. So we had that. Did anybody
Better.
else, Joe, Tom, did you see anything else
No,
that came
the
out?
only thing I made a note about was where Bob Doan talked about a bridge. Specifically, he mentioned a 3-sided culvert, but outside of that, they were pretty good.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I saw a little minor typo, but it wasn't a big deal. Okay, well, so all in favor of approving the minutes from December 4th, 2023, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Aye.
And all in favor of approving the minutes from December 16th, 2023, raise your hand, say aye.
I wasn't there, abstain, I guess.
Okay. Well, they were good minutes. So
Great
approved.
minutes.
All right, so remarks. I don't really have anything except thank you to Aaron and Maria for well, first for getting the Longshore letter, the land use attorney letter. That was helpful. And also for your discussion tonight for the Base Hill Road application. I think we came out in a good place on how to move forward on that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate
I agree. I think that I think let's see how it works.
Yeah, I mean it's very frustrating because I remember like it was yesterday, the discussions we had, and it yeah. Anyway, so I think we came up with a good effort. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Oh, and thank you for all of you for trusting me again for another year.
Make it easy.
Bless you.
Well
Thank you.
done.
Thank you for
Um,
serving. Thank you for serving.
All right, those are all my remarks. So anybody else, inland wetlands agent, any remarks?
I
We're not
had,
gonna have- Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Maria.
No, just because we don't have a sidewalk, so that's nice.
Right, there's no site walk. We do have, we're gonna have a legal training session with our land use council, at our February meeting. So we did invite our land use council just to give a refresher of inland wetlands law and, the regulatory process. We haven't had one in several years. So we thought that would be a good opportunity now that we're early in the calendar year, to get that under our belts. And the public hearing that's scheduled for next month, now getting the consultant on midway, the 30 days before the hearing. I did advise the applicant that there could be an opportunity for having some presentation at that meeting and then continuing the hearing to March, which would also allow our consultant to get a little closer to vernal pool season to walk the site and make sure that one isolated wetland doesn't exhibit signs of vernal pond.
Right.
So that has been noted and the applicant is aware of that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I think that's all we had. Just wanted to remind you that we do have both Pete and Ira Bloom, Pete Gelderman and Ira Bloom coming next month.
Okay, well, that'll be fun. All right.
As fun as land use law is.
I think it's fascinating at this point in time.
It is.
All right. Well, I'm sorry we won't see each other in person this month, at least not officially, but I will entertain a last motion if anybody wants to have the honors.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead,
I'll
Tom.
just make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, excellent. All right. All in favor? Raise your hand, say aye. All right. I'll see you guys in February. Enjoy the rest of the month.
Go
You too.
Go you
Good to see
Ducks.
everybody.